Hi, I'm John Peluso, President of First Clearing, and I'd like to talk to you about why this is a great time for advisors. Over the next several minutes, I'll touch on some of the unusual opportunities that I see coming and why I'm very optimistic. And if you're kind enough to share some time with me, I believe you'll see the reasons for my optimism. That said, let me assure you that I'm not living in some kind of Pollyanna fantasy land. If I were, I could gloss over the nation's current state of affairs by saying that we are living in unusual or challenging times. But let's get real. For many Americans, these are really rotten times. The coronavirus pandemic has taken a heavy toll on the personal and economic lives of so many Americans. And I'm sure everyone knows of someone who's been affected. There's a lot of pain across our country, and those of us fortunate enough to be in the financial services sector should acknowledge that so many others are struggling. At the same time, however, we must not forget that America is a country of doers. In the face of adversity, just as we've done in the past, we get up and get busy. Even in the midst of our current problems, businesses are adapting and serving customers in new ways. People are finding new jobs and creating new enterprises. There are green shoots popping up in unexpected places. And while we mustn't ignore the challenges we face as a nation, we also must acknowledge the signs of hope and new growth that are emerging as well. It's from that perspective that I'm going to make the case that for advisors, this is a time of exceptional opportunity. I say that because three major trends are driving the future of financial advice, and advisors who are positioned to take advantage of these changes rather than fight what's coming stand to benefit. Here are the changes I see coming. First, client demand is changing. Since client demand is the fuel of the financial advice business, knowing where it's going, not where it's been, is the key to future growth. And here's what's coming. Clients are continuing to want advice, probably more than ever, and they want it in human and electronic terms, whenever they need it, in a variety of formats for issues that touch on many aspects of their life, not just investments, and from a perspective that puts their interests first. That's a whole lot of change. So let me take each piece of changing client demand one by one. First is the coming growth of the and aspect in advice, not the or. By that, I mean clients increasingly see advice on a continuum where some needs are met by technology and some by human advisors. Lots of times, in fact, clients are wanting human and technologically driven advice at the same time. We've seen this both together phenomenon getting stronger as a result of the pandemic, as advisors meet with clients via Zoom and other online conferencing services. Even the least tech-savvy grandparents are coming to prefer these kinds of meetings and seem to have had little trouble adjusting to it. A corollary of the blending of tech and human advice is that clients have come to expect that they can access information and certain kinds of advice online whenever they want or need to consume it. Unlike the early days of online access, clients no longer expect a human to be available 24/7 to address a particularly complex question, but they do expect to have the tools and information they need to answer many questions themselves whenever the need arises. Today, when they do turn to human advisors for help, clients increasingly want the advisor to help them with issues that go beyond which mutual fund to buy. They want advice on whether it's better to buy or lease a car, rent or own their home, how to borrow most efficiently, whether prioritizing paying off a student loan or saving for retirement, or how to best provide financial protection for an elderly relative. In short, they want advisors who can provide guidance about every aspect of their lives in which money has a role. Finally, whether or not they are familiar with the jargon of the financial services business, advice clients want and expect a fiduciary level of care. The attention shown on this issue as a result of the protracted battle over the defeated Department of Labor regulation has created greater awareness of a fiduciary approach to advice. It's clearly what the public wants and what more and more people ask for and demand when they seek out an advisor. So that's an overview of the changes that are coming in the form of client demand. And let me add that demand for advice is strong and likely to get stronger. Even amid the current pandemic, 71% of advisors polled recently by the College for Financial Planning said they now have more clients than they did before coronavirus hit. There are millions of baby boomers entering and living in retirement who need and want advice on health care, on legacy questions, and on how to spend down the wealth they have accumulated while wondering whether it will last. Countless other studies have shown that millions of Gen Xers and millennials also want and need advice. What's more, they are willing to pay for expertise, often because they're too busy to do it themselves, even when they know how to use all the DIY tools at their fingertips. Let me touch on the second driver of change that is presenting opportunity for advisors. And this one's related to what we just spoke about. Here, I'm talking about technology. As we've said, technology is not only becoming part of the fabric of advice, it's being widely embraced by even those who have long been reluctant to do things online. With the pandemic making sites such as Amazon the new way to shop, and video calls the new way to visit grandchildren, even the most tech-worry senior generally now has few qualms about using their cell phone to do more than just make calls. But the technology change is more than that. It's about whole new behind-the-scenes advances in the financial services space. FinTech continues to grow in capability and sophistication. It's adding efficiencies and removing frictions in countless ways that will affect advisors and their clients and permit greater levels of service. And in addition to all the terrific things that new tools and applications can do is the fact that they are broadly available to advisors. No longer is advanced technology the exclusive province of the largest firms. Technology is being democratized and becoming available to all advisors at firms of any size at prices that are increasingly affordable. The third and last point about change is that the role of the advisor is changing. Because consumer demand for advice is changing and the technology used to deliver that advice is also changing, the advisor's role in that mix is undergoing a shift too. If anything, the advisor's new role is one that represents the ultimate endpoint in the shift away from advisor as product deliverer. The shift has been going on for decades, from advice being ancillary to a transaction. Transactions, which have become free or virtually free, are now ancillary to advice. And as we've said, clients expect and want that advice to go beyond investments to cover everything about their financial lives. Successful advisors, therefore, have to be able to provide holistic advice. Does that mean today's advisors who don't feel comfortable personally providing such holistic advice have no place in the new environment? Absolutely not. The truth is, their entrepreneurial skills in business development and personal outreach will be more important than ever. What's more, the way that advisors will be delivering advice is changing. And that brings me to my next point. If the three drivers of advice in the future will be changing client demand, technology, and a new role for advisors, then what is the best way to capitalize on what's coming? I believe the future belongs to the registered investment advisor model. RIAs are best positioned to capitalize on those three drivers we discussed. And I also believe that despite today's challenges, and in some ways even because of them, this is the best time for advisors to position themselves for the future by becoming an independent registered investment advisor. If you were to ask me why I believe so strongly that the RIA model is the future, I'd start my answer with a question for you. If you weren't an advisor, who would you go to for advice about anything having to do with money? I'm talking about financial advice in general, not just primarily about investments. Better yet, who would you want your mother to turn to for advice if you yourself had no connection to the business? In most cases, I believe you would want your mother to use a financial professional who put her interests above their own. You'd want the advisor to be totally transparent about fees and charges. You'd want them to be totally agnostic about selecting the most appropriate investment or other financial product because their compensation would not be affected by their choice. And you'd want them to consider your mother not just as a provider of assets to manage, but as a whole person who has concerns about finances that extend beyond investments. Many advisors who are not RIAs already meet those criteria. The RIA model, however, embeds that customer-first approach in its DNA. There are millions of people out there who want and need unconflicted advice, particularly at critical times in their lives, and they're willing to pay for it because the decisions they are making are so important. If they're older, they want advice about when to retire, about Social Security claiming strategies, about switching from a paycheck to a savings plan distributions, and about ways to help grandchildren and others. As an advisor, these needs are not news, since you already help many of your clients deal with them and other challenges. But what about the needs of those you may not be currently serving and whose situations don't fit the economics of your current work environment? Specifically, one example I'm thinking about are Henrys. That's the acronym for high earner, not rich yet. There are countless numbers of doctors, lawyers, and other high earners in their 30s and 40s out there who often are married to another Henry, yet these very high income, younger people have only modest investments, if any at all. They often have young families and are buying their first house and paying off huge student loans. Does your current model allow you to serve them? If you can't, do you think Henrys will suddenly turn to you in a few years when they have accumulated enough of a nest egg to make them an acceptable prospect? You know they are unlikely to, because by then they'll have found an advisor who helped them when they needed the help they were looking for. Wouldn't it be better to help them now so you'll be there to help them later? The fact of the matter is that even in these difficult times, there are a lot of Henrys and others out there earning high incomes and building wealth slowly. It's not just Henrys. People in all kinds of situations are looking for help and are willing to pay for it, but are not being serviced because many advisors' current business models don't provide the flexibility to allow for the compensation style that suits client preferences. The RIA model does. It offers flexibility in pricing that other channels typically can't. RIAs can offer fees based upon assets under management or an hourly rate. Combinations of fees are fine, subscriptions are fine, different combinations of services for different levels of fees are fine too. Want to serve the less wealthy adult children of a wealthy client? No need to jump through hoops to do that with the flexibility that the RIA structure provides. Ironically, as the most recent study of elite RIA firms from Investment News points out, the most profitable and fastest growing RIA firms overwhelmingly rely on asset-based fees for their revenue, and to a degree greater than other RIA firms. Yet, their offering of other pricing models, especially when combined with the other advantages of the RIA model, allow them to serve more kinds of clients more profitably and drive enterprise growth and value. And let me touch on those points, which are probably the most important for those of you that have considered becoming independent RIAs. Specifically, I see two major advantages of the RIA model. One is the technology that independent RIAs now can tap and use in the way that best suits the kind of businesses they want to build. The second, and probably more important, is the flexibility for advisors to organize a business that better serves clients and is more profitable for its owners than the current model. On the technology front, there's no denying that today's giant advisory firms are leaders in technology, but they no longer have a monopoly. The burgeoning fintech sector has spawned a fantastic array of products and services that many of the largest firms themselves are using. Independent RIAs now have access to all these tools and can use the best of the best in combinations that suit the needs of their business and the needs of their clients. If the choices and selection process and training seem overwhelming, there is now an entire infrastructure of consultants and trainers to help. You can even farm out the entire technology job, as well as operations, compliance, and other administrative functions to specialized third parties. As a custodian, our firm is effectively the hub for all these providers, and we can actively help advisors assemble the technology and all the other resources they need. The two key takeaways on this front is that as an independent RIA shaping a business, you are never alone and you have the flexibility and resources to build an enterprise that can compete head-to-head against anyone. The second major advantage of the RIA model is that it permits an advisor to build a business around the real killer app in the advisory business, and that's a true team structure. Yes, many advisors currently work in teams and have built teams in other advisory models, but an RIA firm built around a team is different. At the elite RIA firms identified by Investment News, client relationships are rarely owned by a single star advisor. Half of these profitable and growing RIA firms assign a team of advisors and staff to a client, while another 17% divide up responsibilities between advisors and support specialists based upon the individual client's need. By extending the relationship beyond a single advisor, elite firms create a closer relationship with the client and build a strong brand that makes it easier to attract additional wealthy clients. The team approach also enables top firms to offer clients the broader array of services they are demanding. Education planning, business owner succession planning, concierge services, and income tax preparation are among the offerings that most often differentiate these top firms from others. And the deeper service menu creates a virtuous cycle in which, by being able to offer more, successful RIA firms continue attracting a greater portion of other high net worth and ultra high net worth clients. My last point is that an owner of an independent RIA business, and I stress that word business, an advisor opens a door to far more personal choice than he or she has ever enjoyed. And by that, I mean an advisor may choose to manage the business and leave the advice giving and administrative jobs to others. Or the choice may be to concentrate on providing advice and supervising portfolio management if those are the passions, and leave running the firm to someone else. And if business development has always been your sweet spot, and that's what you enjoy the most, you can be free to concentrate on that. As the owner of the business, the choices are yours. And from so many advisors I know and have spoken with, that freedom to be themselves and have others do what they do best has renewed the passion they felt when they started in the business. I think by now you know why I'm optimistic about the RIA channel and why I think it makes so much sense for advisors who've been considering a move to seize the opportunity and become an independent registered investment advisor. It's where the industry's headed because it's what clients want, and it's the best way for advisors to achieve the personal satisfaction and financial rewards they deserve for helping people live better lives.